Hi boys and girls, Lee the drum here from Cariad Towers, Cariad Drum Shop, Cariad Custom Drums. Check out our websites, links below to see who we are and what we do. I want to have a little chat with you today. Simple chat about tuning of drums, the dreaded thought. Some say there's no such thing as tuning of drums. There's an adjustment of tone, whichever, but we'll call it tuning of drums for the sake of this video. A lot of people often think that they are rubbish at tuning drums. Well, actually you're not. All it is that you have a certain concept in your mind of how your drums should sound. You watch videos online and you hear these drums and you think, oh, that's the sound I want. And then you try and get them within your drums. You simply can't get that sound. You're like, oh no, why? Well, I'll tell you why. Because those drums have been what we call EQ'd. They've gone on a DAW program. They've had all the pitches changed and altered. They've cut out the frequencies that don't sound very nice. So what they do is they'll stretch narrow the frequency band, take it up high, move it around until they find, oh, there's a nasty bit, like a so they don't want that, and then they'll cut that frequency out. When you're tuning your drum kit in a room, you can't do that. You can't cut the frequency away. The frequencies are within the room. So you tend to have to try and blend the best you can. So don't ever think that you're rubbish at tuning drums because you hear something online through speakers that someone has spent hours getting right and you can't quite achieve it. But the other reason that you're not rubbish at tuning drums is that the environment the drums are in influence the way that they sound. Like my room here, I have to tweak these drums for any videos that I do because this is a very rectangular shaped room with sharp edges on the corners. I've started to hang curtains up, partly for the visuals, but partly to try and create a bit more dampness, a less bit of ring. I have an exercise machine over there that is made of steel, so that rings out. So we've thrown a drape over there. I have large glass doors here to my right because this was a garage. So we just put patio doors across the whole lot. Glass is very reflective, so I've covered that as well. So that's draped. And there's other things in here that influence the room. So I'm trying to create more absorption through putting some panels, and I'm trying to create some more absorption and deflection of the sound so that the drums sound less harsh within the room. So I can set this drum kit up in here, get it the best I can, and think that's not bad. Go into another environment, change the room. Like if I take this drum kit from here and go outside where there's no reflection from anything, it's just wide open to infinity, you're not going to get the same sound because you've got no bounce back. If I take this drum kit for an example to my shop, Cariad Drum Shop, it's a very large room and it's very tall and it's got a lovely pitched roof. And for whatever reason, when you put the drums in there, they've got room to breathe and they sound big, they sound warm. The next thing really is to consider the drum kit as a whole. The problem is I can spend 3 hours tweaking this tom and that one individually, take everything off, drop my snare off, just go around tweaking and go, oh, that's perfect, oh, that's perfect, that's perfect. Then I come to the snare and I work on my snare and I say, oh, that's lovely. Same with the bass drum. Then I play the drum kit and it all goes a little bit haywire because that with that doesn't sound right, or that with that. Or what I had in this room was a situation that I tweaked the tom here just as I wanted it. The snare on the snare drum itself buzzed like mad and it was out of control. It was a proper and it was long and I was like, oh no, right. What I realized is as I was hitting the tom here, it wasn't affecting the bottom. It was the pitch or frequency coming off this when it's moving the air around. It was affecting the top head. The top head was resonating, pushing the sound through to the snare underneath. How I realised that, as I was hitting it and trying all sorts of things to reduce the snare buzz from the tom, put my hand, which you do, on the underside, sat it to kill off the bottom head. I was hitting it and the snare was buzzing like mad, and I was like, wow. So what I then did was I just put my hand on the top. I thought, I wonder, killed the top head off, hit it, snare buzz went down really small. So I realised it was that to that. So then you got to think, am I going to change my positions? Am I going to end up with the toms about half a mile away? And I thought, no, I want to stay where I am. So I started to just detune the top head only. And as I was going along with it and hitting it, just a little bit at a time, the frequency changed just enough that suddenly it wasn't affecting the snare in the same way at all. So this is the point. Get them more or less where you like them. Try and compensate between feel and tone. And then the next thing to do, which is really important, is to set the whole kit up, play the whole kit, and listen to the toms together with the snare. So again, I had to compensate a little. I wanted this a little bit more higher pitched, but when I come up to a certain frequency on the tom, it sets this off like there's no tomorrow. So rather than spending forever and a day adjusting this and adjusting everything or moving the snare, I just simply tone that tom down, change the frequency on it, and when I play it, I was happy with the sound and it wasn't creating the snare buzz, just a small amount. I also adjusted the snare, but you end up, if you're not careful, tightening the snare and cranking up the snare wires so much, hoping that they, by being under strain, will stop the snare buzz. It's not. The frequency of that was setting the top tom off, as I said, and bouncing through. So I've now set that nicely so I can loosen the snares off that little bit. You want some snare buzz. You want some. There's actually programs out there now, if you do all digital drumming, where you can get a plug-in that creates a snare buzz, and you can add that little because it creates a bit of flavour. So you want a little bit going on, that's not a problem. You just don't want it out of control. This frequency was not affecting it, and that's how I sort of realised it was to do with the tension of the drum, the frequency, because it's not that much distance between these and those, and yet that wasn't doing anything at all, and this was wild. So that's when I realised I need to just tweak them. So treat it as a whole instrument, not as individual pieces. And if you train your brain to treat it as a whole instrument in your playing, you're going to tune it as a whole instrument. You're going to create the feel between everything you want to do. You're not going to get one drum and spend 4 hours trying to tune it up and then find out it doesn't work. You tune the whole thing together. And that's exactly the same as when sound engineers work on your drum kit. If you go into a studio, get them to work on the whole drum sound. So you're completing, you're getting a nice mix. And a lot of people on sound engineers will then put the effects on the drum bus, which means that all the channels going into one section, that's where they'll put the effects for the whole kit, and maybe then add an effect here and there on certain parts of the kit that need it, but they're concentrating on the whole or overall sound. If they do that, and you play with that mindset, then tune with that mindset. It's all linked together. Be prepared to adjust for each environment you go to. So if you turn up in a very crowded, small place, then you might want to pinch up those drums, get a bit of resonance going on them, because that room will suck up the sound like there's no tomorrow. And that brings me on to something else in just a moment to do with the instruments. But then if you go into another place and you're up on a stage, so you're up about chest height from the people, the sound goes across the top of their heads. That's different again. That's a nicer sound because they are absorbing the sound direct towards them from, say, the chest. If you're down on the floor, that bass drum is down with their feet. That's going to kill the bass drum. So you've got different environments, different feels, and you need to adjust on the day you turn up. Now, the other thing is then, moving on, is the influence of the instruments around you. Many people have turned up, for an example, and they've being the drummer, they've gone in there early and they thought, I'm going to set my drums up and get them sounding bang on. So they've turned up at the venue, set up, spent 20 minutes tuning, tweaking, and they get it all really nice. And then the bass player sets up a big cab next to you, and then the guitarist sets up a cab next to you there, and then a keyboard player sets up, and so on. And the minute they start to play, this is gone. Then it's different. So the beautiful thud you had on your bass drum, you're like, oh, that's really fab, has suddenly been absorbed by the bass player. The snare was just nice. Now every time he hits a note, the snare is doing this snare buzz out of control. And you've got to think, oh no, how are we going to deal with that now? Because every time he's hitting. So what angle is he on? You could turn him away from you slightly. Is he pointing straight at the kit? So it is frequencies interfering with everything you do. Do you see? You have to change and adapt to the environment you're in. So I come back to the beginning. You're not rubbish at tuning. Because a lot of people come in my shop and say, Leigh, will you tune up my drums for me, put all new heads in and get it all nice, because I'm rubbish at it. It's not that you're rubbish at it. It's that your expectations are either different to reality, or you're just not experienced enough yet to know you've got to live and compensate certain things at certain times. So just to reiterate, you could go out and play live, you can set up, have your drums sounding perfect, the band start playing, those drums change. Because they all now are taking up the room of that volume. So if you're in a room, there are frequencies within that room, and the bass player is taking up some of them frequencies, the guitarist is taking up some frequencies, and you're in that band. And a lot of it will be within a common bandwidth. Some frequencies will be high, some will be super low, but a lot of information that we listen to when bands play live are more or less midway. There's a lot of frequencies that sit in this zone, some above, some below, as we said. So what you've got to do as a band, for an example, is try and create some differences in your frequencies. Maybe a bass player even needs to tweak his cab to try and cut through a little more. He doesn't want it too deep with you, and different things. And that, again, affects how you sound. Now, the next thing that affects how you sound is your seat. Obviously, your playing affects your sound. So you may tune the drum kit perfect, but you're not experienced yet as a player to get the best sound out of them. I'm going to do a video just on that, about not playing everything at full whack. That's a separate video. But your seat is a big influence. Why? Because this is an instrument where the energy goes outwards. It doesn't come into you. So the kit will often sound much better from where you are, where the camera is sitting, than it does from the sitting position. And why would I say that? Because when you thump the bass drum and you hit it, where is the beater pointing? That way. And that beater will push the air out that way. You're pushing the drum that way. The microphone is on that side, and so on. And often it's the same. You hit the drum down, it'll resonate out and it pushes away. And if you stand, for an example, 2-3 foot away from the drum, that gives the drum enough time for that tone to go out there and mature, if you like, within the environment it's in. So often the sound out there is a lot better than the sound you're experiencing, and that can be hard because you want the sound perfect for you, but someone might say, no, that's not right out here, so you've got to have it tweaked and changed. You think, oh, I don't like the sound of that. You have to almost shut that off sometimes, knowing that out there it's just sweet. So a little tip on that sometimes is let someone else play the drums, not go wild and amp, but just go around and hit with the band in place. So as they are playing, you're out there listening and going, oh, I like that. I want to tweak the tom, I want to drop the tom, and so on. Not being too precious about your sound. Don't expect so much out of it. As long as there's a nice tone and it's a nice feel, you tweak on the night to suit, then let the music do the work. It's not all about us as drummers. We are important, but it's not all about us. It's actually about the whole sound. So don't be too precise, don't be too finicky. Do the best you can, and the more you play around and tweak, the more you will sort of gain experience and know what you're after, and go with what you like. Doesn't matter. That's the beauty of drums. As long as it's a dum dum dum, a nice feel to them, and let them breathe. So if you go in a very damp room, and what I mean by that, again, a lot of people, small room with a lot of cotton and a lot of furniture in there, you may have a perfect sound when the band play that you won't hear the toms. They'll be dead as a doornail. So then you've got to wind them up a little bit. So they sound not very nice. Doing, doing, doing. But when he starts playing the bass and he's playing the guitar and everything is going for it, they cut through. And in other times I've seen a place and thought, wow, this is a real live room. Everything you do, you tap your hand and it just boing, 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 boing. So then I've taken things to dampen the drums down quickly, otherwise they bounce in all over the place. And you will only learn that through experience. So I hope that helps you, boys and girls. You're not rubbish at tuning. You either just need a bit more experience, or you're listening to videos where they have got a perfect sound going on because sound engineer has altered the drums, and you're trying to create something that you may not be able to achieve within the room you're in. So just remember that. So one other little tip, when you come to tune up and you've got it pretty good, when you then want to just make it a bit of an adjustment, you're nearly there and you think, oh, it's something a little more I want. Some folk, what they'll do is that they will go on and they'll turn quarter turns per bolt. That's quite a lot of pull, that is. So don't do that. Once you've got that bottom, as we said, nice, and you've adjusted and you're fairly close with it and you've sort of got a nice feel, you've done the best you can underneath, either tweak a little bit more underneath, but quite often you can just change the top then because it's quick and convenient rather than trying to get under there and it's fiddly. As long as it's pretty good. Then when you go to do it, don't be vicious and do quarter turns. Literally just a smidgen. Fine tuning. Drums take time, boys and girls, because you've got to get used to how you play. What drum heads you use is another influence. Twin ply, single ply, coated, non-coated. They may not make a massive difference. Will a twin ply clear and a twin ply coated make a massive difference? No, not really, but there'll be some difference going on there. So you would just have to tweak, play and work. I just hope it helps you a little to understand that you just got to keep working at your sound. And sometimes it happens quickly and sometimes it takes forever and a day. It's just one of those things. So don't get disheartened. Keep tweaking, keep learning, work with what you've got. And then maybe then once you've sort of got a nice feel, leave it for a while, play, get more experience, get more into it, and then have another little go at it again. Be extremely patient with yourself. Don't listen to top quality videos where they are, as I said, tuning the drums in the studio. They're then adjusting, taking out all the impurities and the mistakes, and then you're trying to copy that. Now, when we talk of a studio where the DAW program, where they're adjusting and tweaking, that could be compared to a lot of models now that you see on the television, and they've been photoshopped, or a lot of superstars as we call them, whatever you want to say. They've been photoshopped. So basically they've got the right lighting, they have had the makeup done, the hair done, they've been set up in a studio where the lighting is very good. That straight away makes the face look a bit more pleasant. Then they take the photographs and then they move them into the computer, and then they will tweak them, maybe move the waistline down a little bit. Oh, look, there's a spot on his face or her face, remove that. Oh, we'll make the eyes a little bigger, the nose a little smaller, we'll reduce the chin. Do you see how they manipulate in Photoshop to create images that sometimes you see on posters and so on that can't be achieved? It's non-realistic. And sometimes your sound is similar. You're trying to achieve a sound that you hear your favourite drummer with, but he's in a studio with that £70,000 worth of equipment before you start. He's with an engineer that's got 20 years of experience of taping and tuning up those drums in the room that they're in. But also then he knows where his EQing is going to go pretty much with that drum kit. and they do all sorts of stuff with drums. They will drop lots of tape on, sometimes no tape, loads of tape other times, blankets over the front, all sorts of things to get those drums to sound nice. For me, I like drums open. There is nothing on here except for one piece of green gel. I could probably just take that off anyway. I just put it directly under the microphone in case there's any buzz that comes from there. Other than that, I keep them as open as I can, and I work hard on my DAW program to get rid of certain frequencies and to try and create the warmth. So folks, I hope that's good. I hope you get some information. I hope that sort of resonates with some of the problems you may have, and if so, please subscribe, maybe become a Patreon, etc., and just get involved. Give us a little like, give us some comments. Keep your comments good though, positive, to upbuild and educate one another, you know. And any experiences you have for tuning, by all means, chuck them in the comments below. Take care, look after yourselves. That's over and out from Leigh of Cariad. Leigh the drum. Ciao.